Welcome to Technically Speaking, conversations for design managers delivering real stories and ready-to-use tactics to help you build confidence and credibility. I sit down with top voices in design, tech, and business to open the black box of leadership. I'm your host, Harrison Wheeler. With 20 years in design and a decade leading teams from scrappy startups to global giants, it's time to get technical. Hey everybody, I'm your host Harrison Wheeler, and this is a limited run series from Technically Speaking, where we get into what it really looks like to build with AI. I'm talking go-to-market strategies that actually worked, personal projects that turn into something bigger, and the real challenges of designing for AI-driven experiences. The goal, to give you fresh perspectives, spark new ideas, and maybe even help you take the next step on whatever you're building. Today, I'm joined by Kyle Zantos, a Seattle-based designer and builder with over a decade of experience across UX, product, and brand. He's worked in both in-house and consulting capacities with a focus on early-stage product development and storytelling. But more recently, Kyle's been exploring AI in a hands-on, creative ways, building his own tooling stacks using Claude Desktop, Cursor, Windsurf, and Lovable. He's experimenting with rapid prototyping and no-code platforms to build personal and playful ideas to life. One of his standout concepts that we'll get into is this idea of software as a gift, where he builds apps specifically for friends and as personalized experiences. But that's enough of an introduction for me. Let's get into it. Kyle, how are you doing today?
Great, man. It's good to be here with you.
So I'm really pumped to get into this talk today. One of the funny things when we were looking and doing a bit of research about you is that you're really into music. For people that are obviously watching the video, they can see the huge set of instruments behind him. For listeners, you can't see that, but you also have a SoundCloud channel as well. Maybe give us what's the background in music, where that come from? Where are you at these days? What are you doing with
it? These days, less, because I am spending so much time in what we're going to be talking about.
Yeah.
But my former life, all through my teens and my 20s and everything, I played music. That was my sole focus. Work day jobs, of course, to make ends meet, because making money in music is becoming damn near impossible outside of the 2%. But yeah, I spent all my time playing music. I played locally. Eventually, when I moved to Seattle, I started getting some opportunities to tour nationally, internationally. And then, I transitioned into design. Probably, right around 10 years, maybe slightly less than that. It's just really strong in my background. Toured, played locally. I taught instrument lessons to kids and adults in between tours. Yeah.
Oh, you didn't have to stop. So what's the genre that you usually kind of play?
Ever evolving. I have a real hunger for newness. So
sure.
When I was real young, it was kind of nerdy indie rock, kind of Weezery kind of stuff like that. Progressing on from there, I got more into like the Americana kind of folk stuff. That led me into a little bit more traditional in that realm. That's when I started to learn banjo and stuff like that. I'm self-taught in most of my instruments. I play keys, guitar, bass, banjo, some other things in a lesser capacity. And then I don't know, maybe 5 years ago, I wanted to make hip hop beats, but more so from the standpoint, I think this is funny to me, by the way. I think you were possibly the only interaction with a post I made on LinkedIn, where I said, has anybody ever had the thought, damn, it would be cool to hear Jay-Z rapping over the Beach Boys, specifically their album Pet Sounds? And I was like, I had that thought, and so I decided to learn sampling and beat making so that I could make that a reality. Wow. Which I did. It's just never I can't post it to SoundCloud and stuff like that because the copyright laws, because I have Jay-Z's isolated vocal tracks on my
Right.
samples I chopped. But I have this really terrible habit of making things and getting them to like 80-85%, but
Sure.
I'm a perfectionist and self-critical, and so I don't release them. And so I never got the mixes on several of these to be like where I wanted, and there was the copyright stuff, and so it
Yeah.
just is on my hard drive somewhere. And I have design projects that are like that too, that my goal in 2025 is to get a bunch of those things out of my hard drive up into the internet and let
Yeah.
them live on and get past my perfectionism.
Yeah. Look, it sounds like you've got a listening session invite only in your future.
That's not a bad idea. I like that.
Yeah. So kind of maybe segueing a little bit into um this side project work. Obviously everybody these days they're talking about this thing called vibe coding. Um and uh my terrible definition or assumption of what vibe coding is basically we've got all of these tools that are now making it a lot easier for folks with no code experience to essentially prompt, maybe do a few sort of changes, and they
Hmm.
can ship something.
Hmm.
Um, it seems like you're into the concept or not, right? We're
Big time.
making this all over. Maybe kind of give me a little bit of background into that. What's your experience been like?
I mean, it's awesome. I love it. The vibe coding term I really struggle with. I don't love using it, but it's become so colloquial. Like people instantly know what you mean if you're kind of in our bubble.
Yeah, yeah,
Term itself is not my favorite, but the practice of it is my favorite.
mm,
Uh, so maybe like November of 2024, um, I had gotten really interested in AI starting more towards like the beginning of 2024, more from how can I apply this into what I'm doing? ChatGPT 3 comes out and then 3.5 comes out, and it's just like, damn, this is really interesting. And I was doing design projects, and I was just like, I'm going to start using what's available and see where I can augment my process, where it doesn't work that great, you know?
mm,
Um, and so as time went on, AI timelines are an alternate reality, like, especially now, like
yeah,
AI, like a week in AI is like 3 months, like
right,
of the past. And so like the pace of development is
right,
insane. And then keeping up with that is increasingly hard. But um, I had taken the Maheen Sohail's course on Maven that I think is called Becoming an AI Product Designer. I
yeah,
had I had taken that while I was doing my projects and experimenting with AI, because I was just like, yeah, let's get a boost in my education and exposure and everything. And Amar Reshi had come on as a like just guest like speaker for one of the course meetup
yeah,
sessions, and he at the time was the design director or head of design at 11 Labs, and
right,
just recently he moved over to DeepMind, and he's heading up the Google AI studio stuff.
yeah,
Um, but he was just early on. He was really interesting, really nice guy. And so I started following him online, and he started posting. He had gone viral shortly before that for making stories for like I think his niece and nephew or something like that with
right,
AI, and then using AI image gen to like make a little custom children's book.
mm,
Uh, but he had posted some other project he did, and he's like, "Hey, I just made this thing in Cursor with this, and here's the prompts I used, and here's like the code base I used." And I was just like, that seems like something I should maybe try,
yeah,
despite having no coding background. Like,
right.
uh, please hear in my voice the hubris that I had when I saw what he had done and was like, I should try something like that.
Yeah,
Uh, and so I did, and I had a little idea, a personal pain point, uh, of bringing results from mid fidelity testing
sure.
back into my Figma file to then go make my iterations from that testing, and how
Mm,
there was no clean way to have all my revisions and tasks. Like, yeah, you can use comments, but then that gets wonky when you actually want to use the comment section for comments, especially if you have teams and stuff. So I
Right.
just like, I'm going to try making a Figma plugin that I can load my tasks into, attach them to specific frames of where the adjustment I'm going to make, and then
Yeah.
have a little go to frame button that just zooms me over to that one place, and then I make the change. So I did it
So what? So
amazingly.
maybe walk me through that. Like you have this idea in your head. You're using a tool like Cursor. Are you incorporating any code? Like, is it just strictly prompts? What other things were you sort of interfacing with, if any?
Yeah. So at that time, and again, this is like Cursor's barely out. There is no Lovable. There's no Bolt, as far as I
Sure.
know.
Yeah.
Um, no V0. Like Cursor is like early on this game. And now it's like, if you look at any of the guides for like, who should use what tool along your learning journey,
Yeah.
Cursor and Windsurf, ironically, is all like, if you're like a real developer, you should use this because it's an IDE. So it's a regular code editor. It's just a fork of a VS code that
Yeah.
most real developers are just like, that's one of their bread and butter tools.
Right.
But it
Yeah.
has a
That
chat.
Visual Studio. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
precisely. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's that, but it has the chat tab on the right side of it that has the AI in it that
Yeah.
either you can just chat with and ask questions and it can see your code base, or you can use at the time they were calling it the composer setting, and that did it for you.
Yeah.
So again, I understood code concepts because I worked with developers in the past, but
Yeah.
I didn't know the language itself. So I was all prompts.
Right. Wow. That's impressive. I
It,
have I have a actually have a Figma plugin that I collaborated with a developer
mm,
maybe like 2 years ago.
hmm
Um, and obviously, Figma's done a lot to sort of change like their community, and you can do much more with it.
yeah,
So in my head, I'm thinking that's probably where I would like start on a project.
yeah.
Um, in terms, so you've talked about a lot of different tools. Um, it's really interesting. Let me go back one more. So you
Sure.
started with this Maven course. Um, what did you say? Last November.
I want to say that one I think was going from like from September through October.
Got it. So you were, yeah, and that Maven really hit the scene around that time. Uh,
hmm
so yeah, they were having a future of design. I think I remember that moment. So from sort of taking that course to getting what you would consider maybe like a minimum lovable product, right? Like how long did that take you?
I mean, it's hard to say because
Yeah.
I was using AI before I took that course.
Okay.
And that course actually was more about like not exactly how to use AI. Like it wasn't instructional so much on that. It
Yeah.
was how to leverage it as a or to more so to design products with AI in them. That was actually more of the focus.
Got it.
But it's still, she exposed you to plenty of like, look at these experiments, go check out these tools,
I see.
that kind of thing. So the timeline I would say was probably more accurately like I started experimenting probably April, May of 2024 or
Wow.
so.
Okay.
Quickly started, I discovered the custom GPTs that you could make through Chat GPT,
Yeah.
which is still like a feature that a lot of people don't know about. My GPT, it's just
Okay.
like, it's still a no code ability to create a custom GPT, but
Yeah.
um, you could upload documents to the project knowledge and give it custom instructions and stuff. So I just started with that. I was like, oh, wait, I know exactly how I'm going to start leveraging this. I'm going to create a custom GPT for every new design project I'm doing that is fully attuned to that specific project. And as I went and made documents and did the normal design process, I just keep uploading them to the knowledge base so that
Mm,
it like stayed with me as like a design assistant
I
essentially.
see. I see.
Um, So a long way around of saying like the journey probably started, yeah, spring of 2024. I wasn't building anything. I'm still just natural language, more using it for like the research
Right.
portions of the design process more than anything.
Right.
But I didn't do anything with code until I saw Amar with that thing he did with cursor. It's just like, let's give it a shot.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, Interesting. Um, by the way, I know we're live, but if there's any thought that you have and you need to pause, feel free to do it. We can actually remove it post production.
For sure.
I just have so many questions in my head now.
That's
Um,
okay.
so here, why don't we maybe earlier you were talking about a number of different tools. I'd love to understand what tools are in your stack, and if possible, like what's the difference between them? Maybe like what are the strengths, and what's the interplay between them?
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, and I will give you my answer to that and
Yep.
my brief overview with the tag to it of there are lots of great places on the internet now that
Yep.
have these broken down in a much more granular way and a helpful, like, if you want to accomplish this and are at kind of this level of understanding, this is a good tool for you.
Right.
So comprehensive. If you still want more info, there's all kinds of resources on the internet for this. But for your first question, my current stack, and this is changing weekly, monthly, like because of just like now it used to be, oh, who's got that new tool? Oh, what's Bolt all about? Ooh, what's
Right.
Replit all? What's that? Like it's
Yeah.
new tools.
Yeah.
Now it's like, all right, so we've got the 5 to 8 heavy hitters. Now it's features. Now it's like, and then
Mm,
it's the LLM drops. So Claude puts out Sonnet 3.7, and
yeah.
then you're seeing all your tools be like, we are now live with Sonnet 3.7, and we're
Right.
now live with Sonnet. And then someone else is like, we just built in a new memory context feature.
All right, Kyle. So you were talking about a bunch of these different tools earlier. I'm really curious of what's in your current AI stack. Are there like, certain tools that you use? I'd love for you, number one, if you can, provide maybe high level description of how you use them and maybe what's the interplay between them.
Yeah, my stack changes weekly or monthly, depending. Just staying with the bleeding edge of what everybody's putting out there. It used to be that I was paying attention to the new tools. The Lovable came on the scene. It's like, oh, what's that all about? What's that really good for? And
Yeah.
Bolt and Replit and all that kind of thing. Now it's just paying attention to the features that they're all dropping. And there's those kind of more major players, the 5 to 7 of those, and then there's the category below. But so it changes a lot, but I'll tell you what I've got going on currently that's working well for me. That's pretty reliable. Um, so I'll start in Claude. I've got a project set up just for prepping for the app that I want to go build. And I've got like a persona document in there that I have Claude. I tell it to act as this role, um, and help me construct a solid, thorough prompt that captures all the different aspects of what I'm trying to build. So the role is like supposed to be that of an experienced PM, software PM that
Mm,
knows about all this stuff so that I can brain dump all my thoughts and it knows, oh, I should be translating this into technical, PRD-esque terms, which does happen, but later. But in
yeah.
that initial thing, I'll just brain dump. I'll use Super Whisper, get that into Claude, tell it to optimize a prompt for either Lovable or V0, whichever one I'm going to start with. I'll bring that prompt. I'll edit it some, do a little tweak, but I'll bring that into one of those platforms, give it there, and then a lot of times with these thorough prompts, what I'm finding much more recently is I'm getting one shot, like the framework of the house is coming in like one
Wow.
shot, at least just the general, like that page exists and these buttons and
Yeah.
all the framework is there. And so I might do one or two more prompts within that
Yeah.
ecosystem, but more often I'm just grabbing that code base, connect to GitHub, clone the repo, bring that locally, and then just open it up in Cursor and really go to work inside of Cursor.
Wow. Wow. So, kind of being like that product partner, how much time would you say it would take before using AI to get to shaping the PRD and then being able to export that code? Like in the past, how long would it take you to get to that point?
In the past, pre-AI?
Pre-AI, correct. Yes.
Oh, I mean, you're ideating,
Yeah.
you're getting your low fidelity wireframes. You have to like flesh out so much more before you're even getting to a point of like, all right, now let's make a PRD for that so that our dev team can
Right.
actually, I mean, it could be months easily, like all depending on the
Right.
structure of your team and how you guys roll. But
Right.
I mean, so long.
Yeah. Yeah. So now that you've kind of been taking us through the stack, you also sort of talked about even earlier on kind of building this knowledge base
Mhm.
in these sort of custom GPTs. Um, one of the things that you posted on recently and that I've been hearing out about a lot, this idea of MCPs. Maybe kind of describe to us what that is. And I think specifically, you were kind of speaking to this idea of memory and not being able to sort of
Mhm.
inform the work that you're doing.
Yeah, so this is another area that's like I'll just give my quick overview, but there's lots of
Yeah.
great thorough resources on the internet explaining this
Yeah.
even more. But basically, MCP stands for Model Context Protocol, and they're MCP servers. I believe they were invented by Anthropic. So you can bring in these servers into your instance of Claude Desktop. You can do it inside of Cursor or Windsurf. I know that OpenAI has said that ChatGPT is going to be able to leverage MCPs soon because people were so into it. But essentially, what it is it's like a natural language API slash translator that allows there's all these MCPs for these different tools or data sources or websites or whatever, and it's translating your natural language prompts into a language that endpoint understands. So, um,
Gotcha.
there's ones for GitHub where I can say like, hey, pull this repo and clone it into my desktop and do all that. I have ones that can go scrape documentation sources for different frameworks. The Firecrawl MCP server uses a browser and goes and scrapes documentation about React 19 or Tailwind 4 just came out and, whatever. What you're referring to, the memory MCP, which I posted about a little while ago, I just felt was an MCP that wasn't getting a lot of shine.
Okay.
There are a lot of posts about all these different ones, but the memory MCP is this really kind of basic, like it's just a knowledge graph. Like the file is tiny, it's a text file that
Yeah.
lives locally on your computer. But what it solves is context being maintained from chat to chat to chat. So if you've used AI extensively at all, you felt the ceiling that you hit of the context window. Now, all these new LLM, all the models that everyone's putting out, Gemini 2.5, its big thing when it came out was like it's got this 1 million token context window, which
Right.
basically means a much longer conversation than a lot
Right.
of the other ones were able to maintain. But what this did is like its theory was, this is before we even had the 1 million token context windows available. If I just keep this like document, this text file of a knowledge graph, then at certain times, either you can set it up to automatically do it or you prompt it to create entities, create relationships between the entities, and add observations.
Okay.
So the memory graph, it's great because it's private, it's local on my machine.
Right.
But when I tell Claude, hey, add this to our memory, it will go and do that. So now Claude, in any new chat I start on a new project or just a random one, it knows about me, my skill set, the tools I like to use, my professional background, the projects I've been working on. So then I can just be like, hey, give me a summary of all the projects I've done this year, and then output. And I didn't
Wow.
have to set it up with new context and all that kind of thing.
I love that. So maybe for all intents purposes, if we were to add this example, you've kind of talked about the specific tools that you used that are in your stack. So
Mhm.
essentially, you could inform the memory for when you're starting to maybe look to build with code. It's giving you code that works in these different systems that you use, right?
Yeah, or optimize prompts for, hey, I'm using Bolt lately now, and
Mm,
it can search the internet when if I, let's say in this setup, like I said, I've been using V0
right.
or Lovable as my step one, or my first place I'm prompting a lot of times.
Yeah.
But if I say I'm starting to use Bolt instead, go search the internet, look at the documentation, scrape the documentation about Bolt, about anything you can find about the way its LLM or its framework is set up and how it interacts with the LLMs. And then each new time that I ask you, make me a prompt out of this brain dump that I've just given you, optimize it specifically
Mm,
for what best works with Level or with Bolt in this example.
wow. Very powerful. Thank
Mm-hmm.
you for taking us through that. So I know when people see all these acronyms, it can be pretty
Yeah.
daunting. Um, so I want to maybe shift a little bit. You have this concept around software as a gift, not to be confused with software as a service, but I love this because it's a much more of an intimate approach to building things. Uh,
Yeah.
Maybe kind of give us some context in terms of like where did this idea come from, and maybe what are some examples of things that you shipped?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been a fun little random spawn along my journey of can I make stuff now?
Yeah,
And the answer is yes, yes I can. But the idea came from, so like last year for my wife's birthday, I had thought of this idea to make a Google form and send it to like her close friends. She's originally from the East Coast. She now has, that core group of friends that you make in your 20s,
yeah,
especially. It's like,
stay
you
with
try
you.
your best to keep
Yeah,
that tight as you get older and everything, but it's hard,
yeah,
especially people move,
yeah,
people have kids, lives change. It's just part of it.
yeah,
And so it's easy to get a little bit more disconnected from some of those like really, really core, close adult friends. And so I kind of took the set of those friends. It was close to 10, and I emailed them this Google form and just said, "Hey, can you guys all fill this out for me? I don't know exactly what I'm going to do with it yet, but I'm going to package it somehow in a
mm,
way that will be nice for her to look at." And so it's prompts of memories or reflections about my wife's personality or habits, or there were other multiple choice ones of like different eras of her aesthetic style, and just
yeah,
like which was your favorite, and putting fun slash embarrassing photos for them to choose from. um, and so my initial plan, or the initial thing that I did with that, was I tried to go on those like custom print websites where you can like make a book
yeah,
and just make a one-off of it.
yeah.
But dude, their editors just suck and they're so annoying, and I got so frustrated. I did like three separate attempts, multi-hour attempts to like,
um,
format all the text correctly, bring it all, and it just always felt like wrestling, and never even felt like it looked that great. And so it just
no,
kind of kept sitting there and I was annoyed by it. And then I had started doing these little building experiments and started to find like, okay, I can do a little bit of this. And then I was starting to use Lovable a little bit more. And I was like, man, for simple stuff,
yeah,
Lovable can get there pretty quickly. Okay, why
uh,
don't I try this out? And so I exported the Google form to a CSV,
yeah,
brought it into Lovable, told it the concept of like, hey, I want to make a
huh,
random generator of, she just presses the one button that's just generate, and
yeah.
it pulls one of these random questions and one of the answers from one of her friends into the interface. And so at any time
Wow.
from her phone, it just lives on the home screen of her phone. She just launches that and just can see one of like, it was around 100
Yeah.
like responses. And so she calls it her
Wow.
customize affirmations app.
I love that. I love that. So she's still using it to this day.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
That'll live on. That's what I loved about it is
Yeah.
like, these are just reflections from your friends that have known you for over 10 years about you. So like that's not
Right.
there's no expiration date on that really, like
Right.
and now that it's digital and it's just on her phone and stored in all the places I deployed it and everything, like
Yeah.
she's just whenever she's feeling kind of maybe overwhelmed at work and not feeling like fully confident in herself and all those things or whatever else, she can just throw that up and
Yeah.
feel good about herself and more importantly, like see herself through the eyes of other people.
Ah,
And that specific nugget was a big reason why I wanted to make it so accessible
yeah.
to her and not just the book, but like on her phone,
Yeah.
is that you can get so much like behind your own eyes about yourself and in your own head and really miss the like way other people are seeing you, and bringing that context back into your awareness is really powerful at a lot of particular moments in your life. So
Yeah.
yeah.
What are some other sort of ideas? I mean, was this sort of like so I think what you said, this is like your first kind of foray in this software as a gift. Like,
Yeah.
what are some other ideas, and has that sort of changed your perspective on how we build software, right? We've always built
Oh yeah.
for large groups of people, but I think thematically there's this level of personalization that you're just not going to get from maybe you know, a big box sort of piece of software.
Totally. Yeah, so some of the other ones, I finished one a little bit ago and I'm just going to launch it publicly now. The
A-
other one, the one
After
I
this,
made for
right?
my wife. What's that?
You said right after this, right?
Yeah, exactly. No, honestly, by the time this, I think you said you're releasing this at the end of this month, so it
Yeah.
will be up by the
Wow.
time this comes out.
Wow.
Uh, I think the easy address will be bit.ly/Jake's Jeopardy,
Nice.
which is a clue to what I made. So a really good old friend of mine, one of my best friends, is a massive Jeopardy nerd,
Yeah.
borderline like religious, like watches it every night,
Yeah.
applies to the show every year, is a huge trivia head. Like he will get on the show, I'm convinced, and
Yeah.
he will be fantastic. It'll be great when that happens. But until then, um, I thought it would be fun to build him like a practice app that
Mm.
follows Jeopardy rules as closely as the real thing does. And I just, I have thoughts like this, and especially in the age of AI and how much better search is and everything now, I
Yeah.
was just like, there's gotta be data sets out there of questions from Jeopardy, right? And the
Yeah.
answer was emphatically yes. Many, like literally, I think I got a full set of close to 100,000 questions.
Wow.
Yeah. So so I had to break that into chunks. But the app currently has a groomed chunk of 8,000 questions that
Okay.
I don't even have a database for it. This is just living like client side,
Wow.
just in a JSON table. But has the category, it has the original dollar amount,
Yeah.
it's got the original clue, and yeah, and it keeps track of your dollar amount just like in the show. It keeps track of like your correct questions, your missed ones. You can skip,
Yeah.
and it doesn't give you negative dollars. You can select categories just to focus on one of the categories. So yeah, it's just a full Jeopardy practice app with real questions. And I worked with him a decent bit in the testing to dial in as close as I could without having AI in it,
Yeah.
real to the show conditional logic on what would be an acceptable answer. So there
Wow.
might be an answer that's like a 2-word answer, but in the real world, they would have accepted this one word of the 2 words
Right.
like in the show. And so for those, it's trained to accept those kinds of answers and stuff. So it's pretty close to the real thing. And I have plans for the next versions to get closer to uh, the real thing in terms of having rounds,
Wow.
potentially being able to do it with your friends, start like a private game,
Yeah.
with 5 of your friends and see how well you all score after 2 rounds, stuff like
Wow.
that.
Wow. Yeah. That's super fascinating. I love, number one, I love the humanity in, you know, sort of the motivation behind it. And it also probably like, helps you respect sort of the thought and the thinking that goes into the actual game show, right?
Big time. Dude,
Yeah.
it's so much deeper than we all realize. But yeah, it really does. And to just quickly answer the part B of that question that you had, building for a really slim, narrow base, and in this case, kind of one person,
Yeah.
um, is so awesome. I love the details and dialing stuff in. Like when I can curate an experience for someone, like plan a just phenomenal 10 out of 10 birthday trip
Yeah.
for them or something like that. I really love that. So building an app from that standpoint and literally being able to dial in exactly as they want, be like, do you like this color scheme? Does this
Yeah.
glass morphism work for you, or is it not as readable as you would want? And they can be like, this, this, and you just go, great, okay, I fixed that with a prompt. All right, we're good.
Wow.
It's so fun, and it's because the cost of developing software is coming closer and closer to zero.
Yeah.
Um, and it's a really fun way to like, I mean, you end up practicing the building part, right, in that process, but it's just a totally new way of custom thoughtful gifts for people in your life that you care about.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not templated, it's personalized. So,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
yeah, I really felt the frustration from you when going on these like print websites, and it only gives you enough movement to do minimum things, and you're like, no, if I'm going to have my stamp of approval on it, maybe
Exactly.
maybe I need to do it myself.
Yes, yes, yes. The timing was perfect.
I wanted to maybe get some of your perspective of like AI's broader impact in terms of product design. Obviously, we've talked a lot about some of these like smaller projects. Would love to understand, how are you
Yeah,
incorporating these with your day-to-day work?
perfect. It's in every facet of my design process, honestly.
Mm.
But to to be prevent myself from being too verbose on this,
Yeah.
one of the biggest ways is that I'm jumping out of Figma so much faster now.
Interesting.
I'm go Figma, I'm mentally is my sketch pad. It's
Yeah.
just for if I need to get an idea on a paper and the layout and the kind of really basic, but like I'm going into especially a Lovable or a V0, even to just like quickly just get something,
Yeah.
um, because I can get I can go from an idea to a prototype I could actually have someone do testing on and give me feedback
Interesting.
on
Yeah.
so fast. And something I keep relearning, but more recently in bigger ways, is like shortening that feedback loop and
Right.
getting to from idea to feedback as soon as possible. The timeline of having a good product
Yeah.
from idea shortens massively when I
Yeah.
spend little time in Figma, much time in make this a prototype that works enough to get the idea across. And I discover needing to answer way more important questions way faster because I'm in the place that the real thing will be. I'm already seeing hover states and how the flex boxes actually interact with this kind of alignment and layout that I could be playing with the magic wand in Figma and not knowing it. So
Right.
that's a really big way that it affects my day to day.
Right. Yeah. It's almost like a de-emphasis on crafting things for Figma. I always see these diagrams of the product development life cycle, right? How it has to basically go from this, and then you move to this stage, and then to that stage. Um, it almost like now we're reducing that. And
Totally.
I'm glad you were able to kind of speak to what the result of it is versus just using the tools to use the tools. Um, where do you think design org should be moving to help support this?
Well, there's a few ways. Like Jakob Nielsen called this out, I think early in 2024, if I remember, but he was just calling out like, look, design orgs, UX orgs are going to be pancaking. It's just they're going to get a lot smaller. A lot more people are going to be doing multiple roles
Yeah.
because AI is bridging massive knowledge and skill gaps already. And again, only in month by month, that becomes more and more true. So I think that what you already are seeing and you're going to see is much smaller teams that are doing big stuff. Individual contributors are becoming massively impactful. So it's great if you are kind of an IC minded person and I think about the whole thing, but maybe my skill set is a little bit more limited. Like increasingly, if your brain is in the whole product space in general, then increasingly you're able to execute on more of that with this, which is from a how should they support aspect. Incentivize, I'm sure you may have seen the Shopify memo from the CEO, I think, that went viral. It's like, it's a requirement. It is a baseline expectation that all of you are leveraging AI and experimenting with it and all that stuff.
Yeah.
That makes a ton of sense to me. If I had my own org and a team and stuff, I would be building in some incentives of like, hey, once a month, we're going to have a contest and you all get, maybe it's an extra day of PTO or a gift card or whatever. Something, but have a fun Slack channel. People can kind of drop in, hey, I've been doing this. End of the month, have a contest for who did the weirdest thing with AI and who found the most effective work-related, enhancement with it. But pushing and incentivizing and enabling, building in time to their expectations to be in there, to me is huge.
Yeah. 100%. So one final question I'm grilling you with. We talked about a lot today. For someone listening that wants to get started and they feel overwhelmed, like what's a great place to start?
Yeah, man. That's such a common question. One of the best tips I can give is go use one of those search-enabled AIs. Have something you want to make. Maybe it's image, maybe it's an app, maybe it's whatever. Go to one of the search-enabled AIs, tell it what you want to make, tell it to search the internet and advise you on the best major vetted tool for that purpose. And that could be a way to start. The other answer I have is, I know there's some others out there, but I keep running into this where I'm having this conversation with people where they know I'm tuned in and they ask me the same thing. And increasingly I'm having like individual calls with colleagues that haven't gotten started where I'm answering that in long form in like an hour session. I'm thinking about starting a channel somewhere to start making videos for that. I'm at ground zero. I'm a designer. Where do I even start? What tools should I use? And, maybe doing a 10-parter, like in your research process, use this, experiment with this. If you're in your UI phase, these tools, that kind of thing. So if that's something that people are interested in, reach out to me, DM me, whatever, and just give me a +1 for yes, would very much like to see that, because it's a really hard question to answer because it's nuanced. The simplest answer, just go do something. That's the place to start.
Well, thank you. That's super practical advice. And speaking of, where can people connect with you?
On Twitter, Kyle Zantos, LinkedIn, same thing. I'm fortunate that my last name is bastardized Greek. So there aren't any other Kyle Zantoses in the world, which has been really great in the age of the internet. It's easy to get my domains and my email addresses.
Nice.
But yeah, Twitter, LinkedIn, my website is just my name. You can email me from there, DM me on any of those things. It's easy to get a hold of me, and I welcome the contact.
Awesome. Well, Kyle, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your knowledge, your wisdom, inspiration. And I know folks listening are excited to get building with things. That's it for today's episode. And can't wait to see this Jeopardy game drop. And
it will be out when this episode drops. So thanks a lot for having me on, Harrison. This has been great.
Yeah, you'll have to send me the link. We'll put it in all of the show notes so people can check it out.
For sure.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for tuning in to Technically Speaking. If you like today's episode, be sure to hit subscribe on Substack, YouTube, and you can give me a follow on LinkedIn. Links are in the show notes. See you next time.